The story begins on a LAAT gunship heading towards one of the biggest clone army bases on Coruscant. The evening gloom illuminated the gunship's cabin. In it were Master Windu, Kenobi, and Yoda, escorting Yoda to the Venator, where he'd take off towards Kashyyyk to help his furry friends with the war effort. The discussion they were having revolved around Anakin, as it always did. He was just too interesting not to talk about. These days, it felt like everything centered around Anakin. He was the war hero, never in the temple doing who knows what. He was closer to the Chancellor than any Jedi should be, and his former apprentice was on Mandalore helping capture Maul. It was like Anakin was a great attraction for the entire galaxy, like some kind of entertainment product. Windu was deep in thought. The war was escalating, and although many held hope that it was wrapping up, many Jedi, like Windu, were especially in a bad mood these last couple of weeks. Something wasn't right. They could all feel it. The war was ending, but there was still a lingering shadow surrounding everything. So Windu jumped into the conversation Yoda and Obi-Wan were having, again, making it abundantly clear that he did not trust the boy. But then Obi-Wan jumped in, saying Anakin is the chosen one. He is to bring balance to the Force. Yoda then spoke, saying that the prophecy misread could have been. That made Windu think about Anakin even more. But in that moment on that gunship, he suddenly couldn't feel but see Anakin in a different light. This boy, barely 22 standard years old, was carrying the entire galaxy on his back. He came from a life of slavery and poverty to the temple, where he was urged to let go of his emotions. When he was barely 19, the Clone Wars started and he was made a general, carrying immense responsibility on his back. His own Padawan left the Order because she didn't trust the Jedi anymore. All of this while he was closer to the Chancellor than anyone else and had other people relying on him. The boy had a rich and stressful life, possibly more than any other Jedi, and Windu realized that although Anakin had his flaws, he really had been too hard on him so far. Sure, the boy might really be dangerous, but treating him as such would just escalate it. Maybe he should treat him with more compassion from now on. The LAAT landed, and Yoda slowly descended down the steep ramp, greeting the Wookiees and clone generals he would be working with. The gunship finally took off towards the temple again, leaving Yoda in the chaos of battle preparation. When Windu and Obi-Wan finally arrived back at the temple, Windu had a determined look on his face. A sudden feeling of remorse and compassion for Anakin hit him on the gunship. And although he knew his mind wasn't completely clear, he still decided to visit Anakin. He went to his room in the temple, but sadly, Anakin wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He never was. Who knows where that boy spent his time? Probably with the 501st clones, running in the Coruscant underworld or something. And then there was, of course, the Senator of Naboo, whom Anakin was very close to. When walking through these hallways, Windu realized he had actually never even been in this part of the temple. He never visited Anakin outside of the council or sparring chambers. In any case, Windu decided to come check again in the morning. As usual, Windu didn't get much sleep that night. The heaviness of the dark side he felt on the planet made him think about the war constantly. But then, finally, the morning came, and the council members started collecting for the early council session. Surprisingly, Anakin was one of the first Jedi present. He didn't want to be late on the very first day of him officially being on the Jedi High Council. The meeting went as usual, a bunch of politics, war updates, and some wise words from Master Yoda from Kashyyyk. Anakin offered himself to lead the campaign on Utapau to capture Grievous, but in the end, Obi-Wan was elected to go engage Grievous. The session ended and the Jedi were dismissed. As usual, Windu went to the main communications area in the Jedi Temple, overseeing the war and collecting evidence on who the Sith Lord was. Before he could conclude his former investigation, only a couple of days ago, Coruscant was attacked, and that distracted him from the task at hand until now. It was almost like the Sith Lord suspected he was getting close to finding him and tried to distract him. This all made Windu believe that the Sith Lord had to be very close to the Chancellor, and with the war ending soon, they'd soon be able to remove Palpatine from office, forcibly if needed. That would reveal his true intentions. Windu was informed that Kenobi left for Utapau, and Anakin was back in the Jedi Temple. So, he decided to once again look for Anakin, as he still felt like he should apologize to him for being too hard throughout the years. Anakin was in his private quarters when the doors opened with a hiss, and Windu stepped in. Anakin was in shock. What the hell was Windu doing here? Windu looked around Anakin's room. He had never been in it before. It was messy, just like he expected. Then he spoke, apologizing for the interruption. However, he just wanted to talk to him. He paused for a long moment, then continued, "You are a fine Jedi, Skywalker. Perhaps I treated you too harshly throughout the years. I really appreciate your efforts during the Clone Wars. I can sense you are in a dark place right now. If it makes you feel any better, the war will be over soon. If you need anything, you know where to find me." Anakin stood up, looking out of the window, and smiled. Then he spoke, telling Windu that he would never in a million years have guessed Windu would ever say something this nice to him. He understands why Windu had been hard on him, and it's fair. Windu smiled, bowing to Anakin. He bowed back, and Windu left. When the door shut, Anakin's smile faded again as he remembered his nightmares. Mace made his way back to the central communication area of the temple and kept investigating. Every piece of evidence, every clue, he went through everything. Sidious was close to the Chancellor, he was certain of it. But why Sidious used Palpatine to gain more power? It wasn't adding up. He kept investigating, reading reports, pacing around. Many clone commanders reported their victories or retreats through the next couple of hours. Windu always just thanked them for the report, and then continued pacing, deep in thought. What were they missing? Sidious clearly had a plan. The war was ending, and the Jedi were still defenseless. They knew nothing about the Dark Lord. It just wasn't adding up. Suddenly, the elevator doors hissed open and Anakin stepped to the holocomputer area. A hologram hissed in front of them. Cody informed them that General Kenobi had engaged General Grievous, and they had begun their attack. Windu thanked Cody and turned towards Anakin, then told him to deliver this message to the Chancellor. His reaction would give a clue to his intentions. Anakin turned and stormed toward the elevator. Windu felt it. Something big was coming. This information would clearly provoke the Chancellor to say something, at least reveal bits of his plan. Only 30 minutes passed when Windu was already pacing in the Jedi hangar. He knew what had to be done. They had to remove Palpatine from power. Saesee Tiin, Aegon Kolar, and Kit Fisto stood by him when Anakin suddenly approached. Windu felt the disturbance in Anakin, and he knew whatever happened in the Chancellor's office had to reveal something. So Anakin and Windu paced, and Anakin revealed that the Chancellor is the Sith Lord. Windu felt his heart pounding. Anakin explained that he had just revealed it. He knows the ways of the Force. He's been trained to use the dark side. Windu said that their worst fears had been realized. He thought for only a second longer, then concluded they needed to arrest him right now. Anakin spoke, saying that the Chancellor is very powerful. He'd need his help if they were going to arrest him. Windu thought on that. He didn't really know if he could trust Anakin. There was no doubt the boy was very confused. It wasn't a good idea to bring him along, but then he remembered Obi-Wan's words. He is the chosen one. He will bring balance to the Force. He spoke, saying that he feels a lot of confusion in him. There's much fear that clouds his judgment. He will come along, but he has to clear his mind first. He has to relax. Anakin nodded and told Windu he had already arranged a small surprise when they get to 500 Republica. So they all boarded the LAAT and took off towards 500 Republica. On the gunship, Mace urged Anakin to relax, breathe, meditate. He could feel the disturbance in him, and Anakin did. He relaxed, forgot about Padme for just a moment, and as the gunship finally landed, Appo and another 3 elite clones from the 501st approached the gunship. Windu looked at Anakin with a surprised face. Anakin said that they're coming along, just to seal the entrances in case Palpatine tries to escape. Besides, they'll act as witnesses. Windu smiled. This was actually a smart idea, so they made their way past the royal guards and into Palpatine's office. Appo and the other clones stayed just outside his apartment, sealing the entrance. Windu led the way. The hallways were quiet, with heavy silence. The only thing that broke it were the heavy footsteps of the Jedi Masters and Anakin. The doors hissed open, and Palpatine turned around, still sitting in his seat. "Master Windu, I take it General Grievous has been destroyed then. Although I must say, you're here sooner than expected. In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest, Chancellor." All 5 blades hissed to life. Kolar, Tiin, Fisto, Windu, and Skywalker, all standing side by side. Anakin was standing behind Kolar, so Palpatine didn't notice him at first, but his blue blade revealed the Jedi behind them. Palpatine spoke in a malicious tone. "Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?" "The Senate will decide your fate," Windu replied. Palpatine screamed, "It's treason." His face shifted from anger to the soft face of a disappointed father. "Anakin, don't you see? The Jedi are taking over. Just surrender in peace, Chancellor," Anakin replied. Windu looked at Palpatine with a smirk on his face, and Palpatine realized he might need to kill his prized pupil. Windu stepped forward with careful steps. Palpatine stood up, and all of them raised their sabers even higher, ready for anything. Windu now stood just before Palpatine, the Sith Lord. "You must surrender!" Now Palpatine screamed again. "Treason!" Windu grabbed his arm when suddenly a red blade snapped to life. Palpatine crouched and scorched Windu's leg. In an instant, it all happened faster than any of them could have anticipated. The cut was deep, but Windu endured. Still holding Palpatine's arm hard, he clashed with Palpatine's blade now. The Jedi Masters ran in. Only Anakin stayed behind. He was conflicted, but not too conflicted. Palpatine's manipulation had failed, but he didn't want to strike him down. He was just shocked. How could such a nice, charming man, one of his mentors, be this evil, twisted being? He couldn't lunge forward. The Jedi Masters now surrounded him. Windu still held Palpatine's arm, trying to physically overpower him, but like a stubborn Jawa, Sidious managed to keep going, overwhelming Windu. The Jedi Masters were all around him. Palpatine was completely swallowed under the glowing plasma blades. Suddenly, a burst of lightning erupted from the center, and the Jedi Masters flew around the room. Kolar and Teen crashed hard into the wall, and Fisto flew into a chair, tilting it over and rolling off of it to the floor. They were all alive, but none of them could quite get on their feet in time to help out with this fight any further. Lightning hit Windu on his face, but he stood. His lightsaber deflected most of it, and now Palpatine glared towards Anakin, still standing at the entrance, his lightsaber humming. Suddenly, Windu's leg slammed into his face, and he collapsed to the floor, making sure he looked as unarmed and helpless as possible. "Anakin, help! Don't you see? They're tyrants. My boy, please." Anakin avoided eye contact, looking at the floor, just confused. Palpatine. He is the Sith Lord. He still could barely believe it. Windu looked at him with a concerned look. The boy was confused, that's for sure. "I'm going to end this once and for all," Windu screamed. "Anakin, help me!" Palpatine screamed. Windu lifted his saber, but Palpatine had enough. He shot lightning out of his fingers. Windu held his saber high. The pure dark side energy before him blinded him. He barely managed to hold his blade before him. The lightning was more powerful than any he had ever seen. Palpatine screamed, "Treason! Anakin, help me!" But Anakin didn't move. His mind was racing. The unresolved conflict in him escalated, but he did not act. He could not. Windu trusted him, and he saw what a monster Palpatine was. He is too dangerous to be left alive. The lightning stopped. Palpatine was exhausted, his face scarred and deformed. He screamed, "Padme! Anakin!" Windu looked at Anakin with a concerned face, the pieces of the puzzle snapping together in his head. But Anakin stood unshaken. This man before him was a monster. He was pathetic. He would not let him close to his wife. The painful realization snuck into Sidious's mind. All of those years of his manipulation, it was all for nothing. Anakin would not turn to the dark side. Not today, not ever. He would have to get out of this situation himself. He focused, closed his eyes, and acted unconscious. Windu looked at Anakin, and Anakin just nodded. There was a sudden smirk on Windu's face, not because he was enjoying what he was doing, but because he got Anakin's approval. In the end, he chose the Jedi. Windu swung, but then, in a split second, Palpatine lifted his hand, and a lightsaber flew from across the room. In a split second, it turned on and scorched Anakin's leg. Anakin screamed and fell to the ground. Sidious suddenly leapt. Windu swung, but just missed the Sith Lord, his saber slashing through his robes. Palpatine flipped in the air and landed, the big, thick lightsaber landing in his hand. The lightsaber was huge, the hilt was tilted, and the blade was dark red. This wasn't Palpatine's saber. It belonged to Plagueis. Palpatine sprinted toward the exit, exhausted. For once in his life, he didn't fake anything. He truly was exhausted. He told himself he only had to get through the doors ahead. Only that, and he could escape. Windu and Anakin both tried running after him, but they were both wounded. Suddenly, Palpatine jumped through the exit, preparing to shatter the window before him and disappear into Coruscant's night, when suddenly a blaster bolt flew through his back, and then another and another. Palpatine crashed to the floor, rolling with the impact, but the blaster bolts continued flying, tearing through his flesh on all sides. Apo lifted his hand and the blaster fire stopped. He kicked Sidious and confirmed the Chancellor was very much dead. He took off his helmet and smiled at Anakin, still in the room ahead, and Anakin finally knew the danger was over. Mace smiled as suddenly he felt that familiar feeling, the one from before the Clone Wars and all this madness, the feeling of serenity in the Force. And although the darkness over Coruscant would not disappear overnight, the source of the rot was finally gone. Anakin looked at Windu with a small smirk on his face, and Mace smiled back in understanding. Anakin was manipulated, but in the end, he did destroy the Sith. Without him, the plan wouldn't include the clones. And without the clones, Palpatine would have escaped. They both stood in pain, gripping their wounded legs as the other masters started rising, not knowing that what they missed in the last 2 minutes had just shifted the course of galactic history for the next 1,000 years. After the showdown in 500 Republica, the Jedi Masters and Anakin turned themselves in, and with the clone witnesses, they were quickly let go. Palpatine's secret records and decrypted holocomputer information confirmed that he was indeed a criminal in the eyes of the Senate, and a Sith Lord in the eyes of the Jedi. The Venators around the galaxy, with Jedi aboard, started landing on the capital, Yoda and Kenobi among them, as they learned what had happened. Decrypted holocomputer information actually revealed the location of the Separatist leaders on Mustafar, who were captured only a standard day later. Grievous was obviously dead, and the war was over. With all the evidence present, the Jedi were not seen as traitors by anyone. In fact, most people saw them as heroes yet again. Padme gave birth to Luke and Leia, and Ahsoka returned to the Order. And although Windu was mad at Anakin for keeping all of this from the Jedi, he couldn't help but smile as he looked at the young dad with 2 children in his arms, wife and brother by his side, and his young sister nearby.